If you are a frequent listener to the podcast, you know that we have been sponsored by Fuji Sports for quite some time now. Whether you're looking for apparel, equipment, bags, or accessories, Fuji Sports has got it covered. Go to Fujisports.com to see the latest selection of everything you need for your jiu-jitsu, judo, or MMA journey. That's Fujisports.com. Let me take a minute to tell you about RŌL TV. If you're looking to take your jiu-jitsu to the next level and supplement your BJJ education, then RŌL TV has you covered. RŌLAcademy.tv has over 1,500 videos covering individual techniques, positions, and concepts, including seminars and workshops with top-level competitors and instructors like Chris Wojcik, Robert Drysdale, Aaron Hurley, Emily Kwok, and more. Whether you are a beginner or more advanced student, RŌL TV is the online platform that can take your jiu-jitsu to the next level. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave a review wherever you do listen. This makes sure that we can continue bringing you the amazing guests and content that you've come to expect. On this episode, Thomas and his guests discuss the impact jiu-jitsu has on individuals and communities, why martial arts matter, why we need to be vulnerable to improve, and more. Here's the RŌL Radio with a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt under Pedro Sauer and Leo Dalla, judo brown belt, and certified World Thai Boxing Association instructor, Nakapan Phungephorn.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we are live. Great to see you, and I'm glad that we were able to figure this out after a handful of difficulties here and there. We learning things, different buttons, and different scenarios. How are you, Professor?
Doing great. So 2:00 in the day after a little bit of training, I feel really good. How about yourself?
I'm great. It's not as sunny and beautiful here as it's over there, but we got snowed in yesterday, literally. So, but life is good.
Where are you located?
Midwest. I'm in Midwest Chicago.
We got snow too.
You did?
Yeah, but in this area, if you get a little bit of snow, everybody loses their minds. So the traffic is terrible. People's driving ability plummets. People's IQs plummet, and we got to stay home. So
I feel like that's the case everywhere, because in Chicago, snow should not be a surprise, and yet you get an inch, and people just freak out. Like it just becomes chaos.
There's no toilet paper. There's no more bottled water. There's nothing. It's the end of the world. Everybody's
the necessities
of life, Like, what am I going to do? I got to use the bathroom, and if I don't have toilet paper, I'm in trouble.
Look, as I was getting ready for this conversation, I came across a phrase or a quote that you've mentioned, and I love it, and I will let it run it by you, and I would love for you to give me your perspective on this. Martial arts is a power to people, and it has potential to positively shape the world. I mean, that's very deep and very powerful statement. Is that how you feel about martial arts?
I feel that martial arts can save the world. It sounds crazy. It really does. I'm in Washington, D.C., so we have a lot of different walks of life, people coming in back and forth all the time. Not a lot of people are from there, that you run into. A lot of people are passing through to get for work or following a spouse or something like that. So it's like a big mixing bowl, and you have a lot of people from different backgrounds. And, I feel that there's not a whole lot of things. I mean, you could talk about martial arts on a lot of different levels. Just talk about it from just a standpoint of community, right? Like it brings people together. It bonds people. As you train in jiu-jitsu for that long, like, it's the greatest network in the world. You train one time with a person, you feel like now they're your brother, your sister, right? You've made new friends. And I think that from the standpoint of a mixing bowl type of environment, it brings so many people together. And you could have a person who's maybe a high-powered attorney or a doctor, and another person who's just working a line cook or a janitor, and they still have this in common, and they can get together and share ideas and realize that perhaps we're not as different as people would like you to think, right?
Made me think of the mat as an equalizer from that perspective. As you mentioned, you could have an attorney, you could have a military person or a police officer and a plumber or unemployed, or maybe even a teenager on the same mat with their lives going in a very different directions. Yet on the mat, they appear to be shoulder to shoulder next to each other, and there's not much differences between that. Have you noticed similar throughout the years?
I would say that it breaks down a lot of socioeconomic barriers, like people who wouldn't normally congregate, talk, share ideas. It brings you together for a whole different reason. And then because of that, because you have so many different people from different backgrounds, you share those experiences and you get to kind of understand one another a lot better, So just from the standpoint of community and bringing people together, I think that's one big aspect of why I think it has the power to change the world in a positive way. Now, again, I've met a lot of people that aren't the best people in terms of doing jiu-jitsu, right? And so it could also go a totally different level, which is the reason why it's important for us to keep it grounded in Budo and the spirit of martial arts and make it a positive force. So that's one thing. The other thing that martial arts brings together is we're practicing combat, and let's just take it from the standpoint of family. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a sister, different dads, but we sometimes don't always get along. Right? We can fight within like an hour of seeing each other. But one thing that always happens later on is like you go through this transition, you fight, and then it actually that the disagreements that you have bring you even closer together, or it should. And I find that metaphor in fighting also exists, that metaphor in jiu-jitsu, and we also do Muay Thai and MMA. Those things also exist, right? So it's the idea is that these people that you're with, you spend a lot of time with, and sometimes you don't always get to see eye to eye, but maybe you do disagree. But then hopefully you spend enough time together and you kind of work through all that and realize that, we're going to be on the mat together. Let's figure out how to coexist. And I think that is a important skill for humans as well. And it's also something that can easily be avoided, right? You're like, oh, that person has a different idea than I do. We're not going to get along. I don't even want to talk to that person. Our values don't align. And you haven't really even sat down and spoken to that person to see if that's true or not. And so therefore, I think like from the standpoint of bringing everybody into the community, the standpoint of that is this whole ebb and flow of relationship. This is really the essence of this is what's going to make martial arts save the world. I think it's going to save our species, and this is something we also are passing down to the next generation, right? Not necessarily kids, although I think that's a very important aspect of it, teaching kids martial arts, but also the people that you are bringing into the fold. My friend Murillo Santana will call them the lay people, the people who don't practice martial arts, right? Then you're bringing them in, and you're introducing them to this great skill that they're going to pass on to the next generation. I mean, as much as we have instructionals and YouTube and things like that, like there's still a human element, a contact, a friendship, a bond, a connection that needs to be made in order for this to pass from one to another, right? And I think that's also another important aspect, important function of martial arts. And I think this is why it's something everybody should learn. And that's my mission in life, is to spread that as much as I can, to share martial arts to the world.
Why do you feel that the point of struggle brings us together more than the easiness of life, if you will? You mentioned a moment ago, we struggle, we go through these up and downs. There was a conflict in a sense that we're trying to resolve. We fight each other, right? Whether on the mat or troubleshooting, whatever the case might be. But why is that bringing us together? Because one would think the moment we create a conflict and we don't see eye to eye, that would push us apart. Yet it's the opposite.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I can only say from my own experiences of things, right? I'm not like what would you say, like an archaeologist, research scientist, but I just
come on, we are black belts.
Yeah,
we are from
everything.
Doctors to surgeons to psychiatrists to the family therapists. I mean, aren't we? Like, I feel like
I am the sage. You can ask me anything. I will sit there with I have a stick, makes me look more sagely. Yeah, right. That's a whole nother thing too. I think that part of it is you might not be able to connect with everybody. I'm just a guy who loves training. I love doing jiu-jitsu. I love doing martial arts, love doing Muay Thai, and I love sharing with people. And I think that the more that I can be as friendly and as welcoming as possible, that will make people more accepting of what I might have to show them, right? And you can't teach anybody anything. You just have to like show them. That's what Bruce Lee said. He's like, you got to be the pointer of the way, And if we can do that, and we can do, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? You can use it for yourself, and then now that brings us closer. But going back to your original question about struggle, I mean, maybe it's something inherent in humans. Like we band together, we have this tribal instinct, and if you get together and you both kind of solve a problem together, whether you're bringing the problem to one another and you get through it together, I think it just, at the end of the day, it just brings you so much closer, and
because there is something behind this, don't you think? Like we step on a mat, and whether it's striking or ground martial arts, it doesn't matter, but the other person by design is trying to catch us in a compromised position, right? And there's no evil will here where we are fighting for life, but yet look, somebody gets on my back, they're going to try to choke me. I give them the arm, they're going to try to break the arm. Now, luckily, we have the tap to save us from all this. But the act of choking or act of submission is, there has a clear intent behind this, right? And then yet, when that happens, we have the ability to reset, slap and bump, smile, make a couple jokes, little trash talking, and we don't go again, right? I mean, one would think that it wouldn't be that way, yet we create such a strong bond during that moment.
I couldn't even said it better. Afterward, people choke me out, and I turn around and like, "Hey, man, that was awesome."
I know, right?
that was great, But also, like, we have that opportunity. Like, I learned from that person, whether or not they stopped and showed me, "Oh, I put my hand here and I did this when you did that." But really, like, just from the very fact that I got submitted from that person, I already learned a whole lot just from that. I was like, wow, that's amazing. I got to figure out like how he did that. And, I feel better. It's crazy. Like the kind of bonds and connections you make through jiu-jitsu. I can tell you from over the last 30 years that I've done jiu-jitsu, like almost everyone I meet, like if I run into them again, we're like, hey, we used to train with each other. Oh, that was great. It's like you just saw them again. And I think that's an amazing thing. And that's yet another reason why martial arts, and particularly jiu-jitsu, I feel is so important and does shape the world in such a positive way, because it brings people so much closer together. And as I said, I don't have the scientific explanation for why that is. Like but it just is. And therefore, the more people that we can get to study this, and the more people that can dedicate their time to it, I think the better. And that's my mission in life. And also, the mission of martial arts is not necessarily to weed out the weak, right? It's to make the weak stronger. And going through all that adversity on the mat, the challenges, the struggle, you realize that you're a lot stronger than you thought, and that should give you some confidence. And hopefully those experiences that you're having on the mat will also benefit you off the mat, be it your job, your family, or challenges you might find outside. There's so much value in the lessons you learn on the mat that it's priceless, and it's a gift to us, and we just got to keep on making sure that we spread that gift.
So if it's so beautiful and so beneficial, and we can really impact our own lives with this thing, how come so many people quit?
That's always a good question. Running a school, that's a question we're always trying to answer, right? And for us, from the standpoint of business, we say, is it financial? Is it motivation? Or is it, you don't have time? You really don't get an honest answer. That's what we've come to find. It's because it's almost like if I'm stopping just because I'm stopping, I feel like I should be doing this, So I have to come up with some excuse as to why I need to stop, because I know it's so beneficial. And that's another mission that we have at our academy, is we're trying to make martial arts a healthy and essential part of your life. You could not think about a life without this. And, that's always a struggle. Some people see it as an activity. and it's just a matter of making people see the value in it outside of just the amount of money you're paying for the class and the time that you are, of course, investing and sacrificing to this art. And I could not imagine my life without it. And just like anything that you are passionate about or love, it also comes in ebbs and flows. There are times, and I'm sure you've experienced it, when you're injured and you're saying to yourself, "Oh man, what am I going to do now?" Like, I feel like I want to train, and it almost brings you like into this depression. But there's other ways that you can continue to train if you're not physically able to at that time.
But even at that point, that's still a challenge that we need to address in some capacity, right? This is not any different than somebody's trying to hit you and you're protecting yourself, or somebody's trying to pass your guard and you're retaining that guard. It's a problem that we're trying to solve. And I oftentimes think about those pauses in training, like injuries or family or work, whatever they might be. Those who troubleshoot it correctly and those who challenge themselves from that perspective, they will stick around. And those who give up probably give up in many other scenarios, don't they?
I would say that if you want to give up one thing, that you think might be good in your life, you'll be able to give up, more in other areas.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about we learn in jiu-jitsu, right? Is like you don't quit. And I think that's also something that when I initially saw jiu-jitsu, for better or for worse, these guys, they don't quit. And this guy's being the Gracies at the time, right? We saw them on UFC 2. It's like, oh, the guy, Renzo gets put in a shoulder lock. He's not going to tap. He's just going to let that thing break. That's crazy. And so that never give up spirit too is something that we need to make sure we try to pass on to a certain degree. Don't do it to your detriment, but at the same time, you're capable and you're stronger of doing more than you think you can. And it's just a matter of finding the way to do it. And so, to your point, I think that, if you love this so much and it's something that you think is beneficial in your life, well, you got to change other areas of your life to make sure that you can incorporate it. And it may not look like 5-6 days a week like you're training before. Maybe you had a child or something like that. I find that that having the child is there's two things. Injury, obviously, you can't help, but there's ways to stay on the mat when you're injured. The second thing is, I'm having a family, and you're like, oh, okay, that's great. Well, you need to be training even more than ever, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get the dad bod, or you're going to get out of shape, or this and that. And so, and also you need to, for your mental health, it's very important to stay on the mat. So as you'd like to say, if there are reasons why you want to quit, it's easy to come up with an excuse. And so it's always important to have these conversations with people. I mean, now we're talking about from the running academy standpoint, like what is it about it that's difficult? Like what are you not enjoying? Give me some feedback as to why this is not, you're making this a part of your life.
Yeah, and I don't want to turn this whole episode into this conversation, why people quit, why they don't. But I do find this very interesting, especially with the family factor. It is like I feel that sometimes people want all or nothing. Like making the compromise of a little bit is better than none almost doesn't exist in today's society. Like either I'm training 6 times a week or I'm going to quit this. And I'm thinking like, how is this even, how do you process that in your mind? Like, why wouldn't twice be better than 0?
Maybe you're getting crushed by the teenagers that are on the.
Hey, listen,
let's too.
Talk about ego check, right? I mean,
this is not an easy sport. I think that it's not an easy art to continue training. So there's always reasons why. I'll always I bring up my friend Murillo Santana. I train with him on Christmas Day. He never takes a day off. He's like his family's close to the DMV, our area we live in, and so he calls me up before he comes from New York, and he says like, "Are you able to train?" Or more like this, like, "No, you're gonna train." Like, yeah.
There was not a question.
No, right,
you were notified.
He's like, "Okay, I'll see you on Christmas at your house." I'm like, all right. So then he comes over and we train, and I get crushed. Like I can't even get anything started on this man, and I've been training for a long time. And that just tells me, like, first of all, I'm always like, maybe I'm not very good at this. Maybe I'm terrible. I don't know how did that happen to me. And one, it just shows you, hey, there's always somebody better. And and that's usually where I arrive to. I'm like, look, that was a good thing. Now you should have, you should be happy that there's even more to learn. This gentleman just crushed you. So let's keep going. So, I mean, I can definitely see that. Like, usually you being more experienced people on the mat, you're oftentimes the hammer and not so much the nail. And I can see that if you're the nail more often than you are the hammer, that might give you some pause and make you reconsider whether you should be doing this or not, But taking it back again to your point, if we let our egos run our lives, then, we're going to be in a really tough spot. And so perhaps maybe it's about making those incremental, small improvements on the mat, things that you're trying to work on. Maybe it's a certain escape. Maybe you understand it's not always about proving, it's about improving, right? And so if we could take that mindset and take it on the mat, perhaps we might be able to weather the storms a little bit more and get through those times where there's difficulty.
But that's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's very hard. Nobody likes to be the nail all the time.
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate part behind is that we are the nail all the time, especially at the beginning, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's. I feel like that's why a lot of people have points of discouragement, or they say, I'm regressing or plateaus. Well, there are so many different terms, but they all refer to the same thing. Like, life is hard. Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
One of what was very appealing to me about jiu-jitsu was you're almost seen in a position of inferiority, right? Like, you're on your back, you're losing. And really, jiu-jitsu opened up my eyes to the fact that, wow, actually, what is looking like an inferior position, looking like that I'm losing, I can turn the tides of battle and actually end up in a more superior position and end up winning the fight. And as long as you don't give up, and as long as you are, applying the proper techniques and mechanics, obviously at the right time, you can really turn this around. And so, for a while, you're going to be in bad positions. As a matter of fact, for us, when we talk to the beginners, it's important for them to realize that, like, this is why you're here. You're trying to turn this bad position into a good position. So don't see it as a bad thing, and understand it's not always pleasant to be crushed by somebody 100 pounds heavier than you, but eventually you're going to be the person getting on top. And it's just a matter of getting through that time.
Well, that's one of the conversations that I often have with the newer students, the ones who can feel those points of struggle. I often say is like, this is why we are here. If we knew everything, we wouldn't have to be here. You came in to learn something new. You came in because you acknowledging that you're seeking the knowledge. And in order to do that, we have to be vulnerable. We have to put ourselves in these positions. We have to feel it. We have to experience this. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? This is not any different than, I want to learn how to swim. You got to get in a pool.
Yep.
Like, you can accomplish what you set yourself to do if you don't take those steps. And that's the hard part. That's why oftentimes, at least in my mind, stepping through the door is the hardest part. The rest of it is just trust the system. Allow those instructors or coaches to guide you through this, amazing experience, at least in my mind.
As you said, it's the ego. It's easy to, especially in this day and age, to not do the things that you want to do. Yep. One of the things that we tried to do, particularly in COVID, was try to get involved with law enforcement and the police. And not a knock on the police. I have a lot of law enforcement. I would say collectively we have quite a few people in law enforcement, but across many agencies, because we're in Washington, D.C. Everybody's got like a law enforcement arm. But I find that the ego, particularly for law enforcement officers, is something that does keep them off the mat. It's like, oh, they're used to being in a position of authority, and it's so easy to use your words to overcome the situation, or at least you think, right? So therefore, I don't really have to put myself in those bad positions and take my beatings and learn how to get out of a side control. So a lot of them end up, well, that's not really important to us.
But that's unfortunate, isn't it?
Yes,
because one would argue that they need it the most.
Yes.
Like the training provided to law enforcement in general is so many. Like, don't even start me on this, because we're going to talk here for 3 hours about this. Like that annoys me. That's like a sore thing in my mind, because one, they should be supplied with tools to do that, but two, there is this second layer that the individuals think that they don't need it. Right.
Yeah.
Perhaps because of, their authority status, or perhaps because of the fact that they have a gun. Right. Like we can argue this the opposite direction. Right.
I went to the MPD, it was Metropolitan Police Department. Again, no knock on them. I know thank goodness for all they're doing on the streets all the time. DC's a crazy place, but we got close enough to offer them a proposal for instructing the new cadets. And they said, you can go ahead and teach a class. And, we work for an hour. And my assistant who was with me, he's the general manager of our school, Lewis, he looks around, he goes, do you know what these people look like? He's like, what? He goes, mailmen. They look like mailmen, but they're giving them guns. They have no idea what they're doing. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, they're just, so if all you have is a gun and you have no other skills and everything, well, makes you just pull out my gun, right? It's much easier to pull out the firearm. And so, it was eye-opening for us. So I was like, they only work defensive tactics, maybe 8 hours the entire time they're in the academy for the 6 months. Very little hands-on training. And so I 100% believe they're just not equipped to deal with the daily challenges that they find on the mat. And that's really one of the reasons why we're trying to push jiu-jitsu. Now I understand, you got a firearm, it changes the dynamics of the techniques and the whole strategy around things. But just from a standpoint of getting them to be in situations of duress, getting them in situations where they can use their hands to subdue people, I think that has a lot of benefits, especially for people who we trust and have our lives in their hands on a daily basis. And so anyway, like you said, you can get into all kinds of things, but yeah, mailmen with guns, unfortunately. So
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that's one of the struggles that I think most, if not all, martial arts instructors deal with. We have the ability to help, but you can't push rope. You can't make people do things they don't want to. And that puts us in a, powerless position, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to keep on knocking on their doors, all the time. Is it time? Is it time? The last time I saw a social media video, there were 3 police officers. This is in DC. And then one just started punching this handcuffed guy in the face. And he was just trying to get him on the ground or get him to do something. And I was like, you guys need help. We're here, come on by. I think you'll find some benefit in it, but still crickets, but I'm going to keep on trying.
That's okay. Keep on trying. That's all we can do at this point. And it all makes a change. It all makes a long-term change. And that's what we are here to do. So let's pivot this a little bit. Let's take this back in time. You've been on the mat for a while, a long time, a lot of experience, not only in jiu-jitsu, but striking arts and judo. And there's a lot of diversity behind your background. I try to ask every guest this question. That's the fascinating part for me. Do you remember your very first day on the mat in martial arts?
In jiu-jitsu or on martial arts?
You tell me.
Yes. Well, first martial art I started studying was Kung Fu. I was, I think, about 11 or 12 years old. And I just got over Lyme's disease. That's when a tick bites you and then, all your joints just start swelling up. I actually lost the ability to walk for 2 weeks. That was the scariest thing because anytime I took a step, I would get this shooting pain in my spine. I didn't understand why.
Wait, I didn't even know this. Hold on. Rewind.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a second. So you get bit by a bug.
Yeah.
And what happens? You're 10, 11. What happens? What's the story here?
You get these terrible headaches at night for some reason. There's a tick. I used to live by a park with lots of deer, and so you get a lot of deer ticks. And so when you get bitten by one of these deer ticks with Lyme disease in it, it puts these parasites into your blood, from my understanding, and they cause great pain in your joints and your joint fluid, and also you get these terrible headaches. I wasn't understanding why this was all happening to me, but it took probably about 2 months for them to diagnose that this is what it was. I
assume this is serious at that point. Like
it's pretty serious. I was raising my grandparents, so they were wondering like what's going on with this kid. He's feeling terrible at night all the time. Like he can barely move around. And there was a point where I was confined to a wheelchair, and it could be because they did this spinal tap. That's where they stick this big needle in your back and pull out all this fluid, right? So it could have been from that, or it could have been from just the parasites kind of spreading through into the spine. And so I would get this terribly, just a burning pain in my legs, and I couldn't even push myself up to stand up off of this chair that I was in. And it scared me because I was like, oh man, this is really serious now. This is, before you're like, oh, I'm just staying home from school. Like, this is wonderful. But now it's like, I can't move. I don't have much use of my body. And during that time, I was watching a lot of Bruce Lee movies. My grandfather would go to the video store. This is back when they had video stores and you had to rent the movies, right? So rent the movies, he'd bring them home, watching all the different fighting movies. Lots of even like B movies, we called them back in the day, which is like straight to video martial arts movies, because they were just the plots were so bad that, just the action was good enough for some people to watch. So I would watch a lot of these movies, and I said to myself, like, if I'm able to, if I get through this, I would like to be able to do martial arts. I would like to do that. All the stuff that I was seeing on TV, and I won't take this for granted anymore, because before this, I was just a big couch potato. Like I would play video games and eat a lot of terrible food for you. And so I wasn't really making use of my body at all.
Wait a minute. So hold on a second. So a big picture here. You are a normal teenager, 10, 11. You get bit by a bug. And then over time, essentially you get paralyzed. You can't move, not literally, but your mobility is extremely limited at that point, including pain and headaches and all the other things. And yet, you watch martial arts movies and say, when I get through this, I'm going to do this. Where's the sourcing? Like, you cannot move right now, yet you're thinking about moving. And like I'm envisioning, we are talking about like Bruce Lee kind of movies where there's a lot of flying things and there's a lot of, the mobility is at the highest of what we are describing, right?
Yep.
It's almost like an oxymoron in a sense of you can't move, yet you dream about moving.
Bruce Lee would say that, martial arts, just moving your body in like combative nature, right? And so it's like it's art. It's art to me. It's like, oh, look at that. It's beautiful. And I wish I could be able to move my body like that. I can't even get out of this chair. So it would be great if I could, first of all, do that, but second of all, dedicate my time and efforts into making full use of my body. So that's really was just a promise I made to myself. I said, as soon as I'm able to get out of this chair, I'm gonna go do that.
So you get out of the chair.
I get out of the chair.
Things get better.
They put this catheter in my arm that runs all the way up. It's like what did you say? Maybe a 10-inch thread that goes into your veins. And so I have to take these intravenous antibiotics. Just like so. Every day for about 30 minutes, I got to sit still. It's almost like getting like infusions, chemo infusions and stuff like that. So I'm sitting there getting an infusion. And unfortunately, my body is allergic to it too. So I'm allergic to penicillin and certain types of antibiotics. So now I'm itching and I'm breaking out in hives. And they said, hey, you got to finish this. It's going to be a 3-week course. You got to keep on going. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And in the meantime, also, since I can't really move around that much, I'm gaining tons of weight. Like I'm just crushing desserts. There's nothing else to do. So it's almost as if, sugar is your new vice. Right. Sit down, eat a lot of stuff, eat a bunch of sugar. So now I'm overweight, can't move my body. And
how long does this go for? Like this whole process from the bite all the way out when you are actually, you're better.
I can remember correctly. It's almost like 6 months.
Holy crap.
Yeah. It took some time to figure it out what it was. And then it took some time to figure out, how to treat it. And then I had to treat it and then slowly begin to regain use of my body.
At which point are you saying to yourself, okay, I'm good now. This is behind me. And now I need to really go and do this martial art thing. At which point that the action of stepping onto the mat takes place?
We didn't even finish. We couldn't even fully finish the antibiotics because my allergic reaction was so bad. We had switched it a couple of times. So they said, well, we haven't had many people to go through what you've gone through or even get to this stage. So let's just take a risk. Like if you feel good, you should just live your life. And if it starts coming back, we'll do a couple of tests and we'll put you back on the medication. So I was like, okay, well, let's just give this a try. And I found back then we had, yellow pages. So the yellow pages, open it up. And because
for the younger people, it's like a very thick book that's actually yellow that has phone numbers in them.
Yeah. Phone numbers and advertisements. I'm going through. I'm like, oh, where I gotta find some kind of martial art. And, because I had idolized Bruce Lee and And he looked so strong, and he was so capable, and moved so beautifully. I said, I want to start studying
What
Kung Fu.
year is this? Just to paint a relative timeline here.
92, 91, 92,
Okay.
just about that time.
Okay.
So I'm 12 years old. I was born in 1980. So at that time
Okay.
I was. All right. So, and before all this, getting beaten up in school, that happened a lot. Just getting bullied, So I was a very timid, reclusive type of person. I would just play video games, eat terrible food, like, I guess some more typical childhood things that people do now. They play video games a lot. You get video games, So anyway, so I said, oh well, let's go ahead and give this a try. And in my first class, I almost just didn't go. I was so nervous. I was just so out of shape. And
walk me through that. So who's are your parents taking you? You walking or
yeah,
like
my grandparents are going to drive me to school. So my grandfather also, he's retired now. He's going to take care of me and raise me. So my grandparents, my grandmother went to work every day. My grandfather kind of stayed home, took an early retirement, took some time to raise me. And he was also the Royal Thai Army mosquito weight Muay Thai champion. It's like 90 pounds, right? So,
okay.
So he's very much into Muay Thai and martial arts. And during that time, there wasn't any Muay Thai in the area to speak of. We couldn't find anything. Nor were we really looking for it, because in his eyes, in our culture, it at that time, and it's totally different now, but at that time, it was something that people did as a necessity, not something that people did for health or for sport. Right? You were forced to fight. Most of the times, the kids were almost like sold into a quasi-slavery to the gym because their parents couldn't take care of them. So they would be in there. So my grandfather, well, you don't need to train Muay Thai. We're not even looking for it, but I would like you to train something that would be beneficial to you. So we found a Kung Fu school that was 10 minutes from the house. And I wanted to train in Kung Fu because it was the closest, Bruce Lee trained Kung Fu. It wasn't specifically the style that he did, Wing Chun, which was also impossible to find. It was almost like wushu, a northern Shaolin style, so heavy on the kicking, almost like classical karate, classical taekwondo type of martial art. And I remember, like, I went in there, almost decided not to go in and open the door. I was just so nervous, and I felt like I'm this out of shape kid. Like, what's going to happen to me? Like, am I going to be able to keep up? Are people going to make fun of me? Like, I'm socially awkward. I got a funny name. I even dress funny because most of the clothes that I wear are just at the most discounted place possible. We live in a 1-bedroom apartment, the three of us. I sleep on the floor. So it's not like I really didn't fit in very much.
I mean,
right?
that's a lot for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. So it's easier to stay home and play video games and just not pay attention to any of that,
So what makes you go in?
I said, I made a promise to myself. I can walk. It would be a shame not to be able to see the potential of what I can do. Maybe I can be like Bruce Lee.
Does your grandfather go with you?
Yeah. He sat at every single practice, brought a book, sat down, and just waited for me to finish my class.
So what's the first class like? So you have all these points of hesitance. There was a million reasons not to go in.
Yeah.
And you push the door, you go in, and you step on the mat.
There's no beginners to speak of, really. There's a group of young teenagers, and so we're in there, and belts of all levels, and it's like maybe 10 people on the mat, and they're all doing forms, things that they had memorized, things that like I had not seen before, but also I can't follow them because I don't know what the movements are, and so but I saw one of my first teachers. His name is Kevin Gorani. Call him Shifu. Shifu is like the teacher, right? So he would come in and he began to lead the class, and he would get in these deep stances, and he would move, and everybody's following him. So I guess get in line, and I start doing the same thing, and then 45 minutes passes by quickly, and it was the most fun I'd had, and also this strong character of a person, just appeared out of nowhere, like he's a kung fu master, right? And I said, now I am in the right place. This man is going to guide me and teach me how to be strong, And I was lucky enough to have two different people. Another Mufandishi Bakari, who ran the school. They were very strong teachers, very strong men that I felt that I could learn from. And so therefore I'm willing to come to class. And if I said, well, if I do this, I should be able to do what they do, And so within the first class, I knew like, okay, this is what I have to do. I feel like I've got a good workout. I'm going to get in shape and I'll figure this out. And, a lot of times the information, we didn't have the internet. So you had to kind of figure a lot of things out for yourself. I did plenty of things wrong, like, how am I going to lose weight? Like, how do I get stronger for this class? Should I do more push-ups? And so then my grandfather ended up building a gym on our porch, so there was a bag there, we had some weights. And then, so my whole thing would be go to school, come back. As soon as I come back from school, I got to do my homework. Homework's done. Okay, let's start training. So I'd start training at home on the days that I wouldn't go to class, and then get my workouts in. And pretty soon I was training pretty much every day. And
has that changed? Has the act of training changed your mental state in terms of being bullied? So you mentioned that there was a lot of that, culturally, and because you felt awkward and because of your name and all the other things, right? Has the confidence changed while you're doing this? What was the differences between pre-training and during the training as far as your behavior and your feeling at school?
Just like how you carry yourself, right? As soon as you start to see, you go, just like as you were saying, going through the struggles, finding challenge and getting over the struggles and overcoming, you tend to carry yourself differently. It's almost like an aura is about you, right? Like you feel that confidence, you don't have to show anybody. It's just the way that you are. And I felt that it took me some time, to get in shape, and I would get different books that I could possibly get. Like I remember one book that I got, Legendary Abs. I wanted to get legendary abs. So let me see how I can get this.
Did you? Did you get legendary abs?
It took me a long time to get even ab. I had more of a keg at the time. I was just like there to get the six pack. So I was like, I'm gonna get Bruce Lee, like legendary abs. Like let's go. So there was a lot of that. A lot of learning how to strength train. And, my kind of training went in a lot of different areas. Like I had a lot of ebbs and flows, and, Kung Fu, I trained pretty much every day. And my grandfather was kind of living vicariously through me at the time. He's like, well,
I bet.
You're going to compete in Kung Fu. So every weekend.
I didn't even know there was such thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, Kung Fu, you have to compete with karate and taekwondo, pretty much all the classical martial arts. They all compete together, right? So, but that also made you kind of like the black sheep because there was certain schools that would win. There's also certain martial arts that they would favor, just in my mind. So taekwondo and karate, this is their tournament. There's not a lot of Kung Fu practitioners, so you don't have enough to make your own tournament. So you have to compete in their realm. So it's almost like you were already an outsider in martial arts, and so I would compete in forms, weapons, point sparring. So a lot of point sparring, and it's almost like you touch somebody with a foot and you get 2 points. You touch them with the hand, you get 1 point. Can't hit the face totally. You got to hit something that's covered. And so I had over the course of 2 years, like 150 titles in, let's just call it like karate competitions. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. My grandfather would travel the United States and be like, they have 6-foot trophies. I don't even know why they have 6-foot trophies, right? He's like,
bigger trophy better, right?
Yeah, I want the biggest ones. And so I would get at least 3 6-foot trophies, and our entire 1-bedroom apartment was just full of all these trophies, and he was so proud of it. He's like, yeah, let's just keep on going. So over time, I think I counted like I had 150 titles in here.
Holy crap.
Just a bunch. But here's the thing though. So then I start training. I get my friends involved because you're learning a martial art. You're like, this is so cool. I got to get other people to do it too. So I get other people doing it too, and I start sparring in my porch with a friend of mine, and he grapples me and he takes me down to the ground, and I'm helpless. Like I can't do anything. I'm a badass Kung Fu guy right now. I could pretend to touch you and move away. Like how did this happen to me? And so that began to kind of opened my eyes to grappling, and because he wrestled too. So he did Kung Fu and he also wrestled, and he was able to just put me on the ground pretty easily. And I was
so what year is this?
I'd say 94. I was 14 years old.
Right at the beginning of UFC.
Yeah, right in the beginning of all that. We're seeing this unfold.
Yeah.
I also go to Thailand because my family's from there. My grandfather used to be a commentator for Muay Thai fights too. So I take these same people that I'm training with, these two guys, and we go to Thailand, and we're there for 6 weeks. I go into a Muay Thai camp, and that's the first time I'm introduced to Muay Thai. And it's the craziest thing, because I would see 10-year-old kids who could punch harder than we could. We're like developing teenagers now. Like, we're starting to get testosterone, but we're seeing like 10-year-olds grapple and take us down easily. Actually, one of my friends that was in there, the wrestler, he decides he's trying to get a little sneaky in the clinch, and he like ducks under to try to take the guy down, and he takes a knee right to the face. There's blood everywhere, and we're down. We're like, oh man, like, dude, this is crazy. Like, they're gonna hurt us if we don't. First of all, we got to take it easy. We can't be trying to throw them on the ground, and they will hurt us. And they're kids, And so we trained there for 6 weeks, and it was a great experience. That's my first time ever doing Muay Thai, and I loved it. I loved it. And so I came back, and I wanted to find a Muay Thai school, and there wasn't any around. And this is the time also when the UFC starts to come out. I think the first one I saw was UFC number 2. As a matter of fact, there was a guy named Jason DeLucia, who was a kung fu guy, who was fighting Hoist in the second round. He had the red sash and the black pants and all the cool, doing the spinning kicks to warm up. And this was great, because I love that time when they were pitting martial arts against each other, right? They're like, we got a Muay Thai guy against a wrestler. We got a karate guy against a jiu-jitsu guy. And so that was so cool. And it only came on like once every 6 months. So we were like, yeah, well, let's just check this out. And I saw the kung fu guy get armbarred in like 2 minutes. As a matter of fact, I was like, we're going to see how awesome kung fu is. I'm telling you, I've been training this for years. Like, this jiu-jitsu guy doesn't stand a chance. And I don't know, he got on his back and then bridged into this guy's arm, and he tapped within 2 minutes. And I said, man, you see, like, now I'm being exposed to grappling and being exposed to submissions. There are these secrets to martial arts. And after coming back from Thailand, I realized that my point sparring didn't mean anything. Like, I thought I was a superstar, but really, I don't know anything about fighting.
And so that's the interesting pivot point in this martial art path, if you will. And seems like almost everyone who was around that time goes through this change. And I have opportunity to talk to many different guys from that era, where they come from striking backgrounds, whatever that might be, and they have this unique experience of somebody takes them to the ground and makes them feel like they are completely powerless,
Helpless.
right?
Helpless.
Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing.
What is going through? Explain to me what's going through your mind during those events. So you clearly, first of all, we are talking about a boy who, goes through serious medical changes, and then, finally walks again and says, hey, listen, I'm going to do this thing that Bruce Lee does. You go through fears and apprehensions of walking into the dojo, and you do it anyway. And then you feel extremely powerful. You feel motivated. You feel inspired, and you learn this thing for a few years. You designate, a significant amount of time to master or improve, let's just say, this striking art. And then there's this 1 or 2 or 3 events where you're just starting to think, everything I've done is kind of irrelevant. This doesn't work.
Scary.
What's going through your mind?
It's very scary.
No kidding,
right?
Yeah,
your whole reality, the bubble just popped. You were around it. You were doing so good, like, you're getting the top 5 in this, and all of a sudden you're just being taken down, and you can't move. You're a baby. You're helpless. And I said to myself, you know what? Like, I need to learn this. I need to figure out where I can find this, and I need to learn this. So I guess I could have gone the other way and been like, that was lucky, or I could, because that's really a lot of what the idea was at that time was, if he tries to shoot on me, I'm just knee him in the head, or, I'll be able to get out of the way, or this and that. So in the world that I lived in, people still didn't believe it, even though we had proof that it could work.
Well, look, it took years for people to start, I guess, for lack of a better word, to respect the ground fighting. Like, I've had Chris Howder on the show, and like he talked about years later, he still has challenge matches, like and he's not the only one. Like, this happened to all across the 80s, 90s, and until this became truly, until UFC became really a kind of anchor point. But also once, like, probably IBJJF starts growing and creates this pivot point in a sport of jiu-jitsu, I think that's probably where it becomes a little more serious and people really take us seriously.
Yeah.
But until then, it's being challenged constantly, right?
It's it's so crazy that people at that time, the first jiu-jitsu class I ever took was at the Yamazaki Academy in Rockville.
Oh,
And actually it wasn't in Rockville. Yes, it was, but it was in a Hapkido school.
okay.
And I was getting in there in the changing room, and one of the students was saying, like, "Oh, you train Hapkido?" I was like, "No, I'm going to go to the jiu-jitsu class." He's like, like, he laughed, like, that stuff doesn't work, like,
Yeah.
oh, what an idiot. Like, he should be training Hapkido with us,
Yeah.
and we just had like a little small sliver of mat in a Hapkido school. So we were second-class citizens.
Right.
And we had to take the ridicule, and we were in these pajamas in between each other's legs doing weird stuff. So of course people are going to laugh at it, but after seeing what is possible and what could happen, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to learn this thing. I was very lucky, even because back it almost didn't happen. I just caught a flyer. I don't know where I found it. Actually, it wasn't even me. A friend of mine who I was training Kung Fu with, he goes, "Remember jiu-jitsu?" I was like, "Yeah, that was really cool watching it on the UFC." He goes, "We're going to train jiu-jitsu." And it was like a drawing, like a picture of this guy getting armbarred. And it just said where it was and what time. I said, "We got to go there. We got to go." I went there, and that whole experience just changed my life. Now we had, maybe it wasn't very many people. It was like 15 people, 20 people on the mat at any one time. And now we're all grappling and doing this secret, and that's what was really cool about it too back in the day. Now that I'm like being nostalgic about the time, it was almost like something that people didn't know what it's almost like skateboarding back in like the early 80s, right? There's not many people doing it. So I'm doing this really cool thing, and people are talking crap about it, and that's fine because I'm doing this because I want to do it. Now people like take one class of jiu-jitsu and they change their profile pic on social media. And it's like, now I'm an MMA fighter, because it's like the cool thing to do. And so, but now, back then it was like this little secret club that you were in. Yeah. It was cool. And that's really what it was too, because, during that time, your idea to do jiu-jitsu was to fight MMA. That's where it came. That's where I learned about it, seeing it in MMA. So that's kind of like where you're striving to be. And for me also, as going back, getting picked on all the time, I always joke about this as like one of the motivations to learning martial arts was revenge. Try to fight all the people, all the bullies that picked on you. Right. Mm-hmm. So it was like, okay, I need to learn how to fight. This is one aspect of it, the groundwork. I can see it. I know it works. Let's get in there and start working. But also during that time, like, there wasn't a lot of jiu-jitsu, there wasn't a lot of schools. The knowledge wasn't available like it is now. It's not on the internet. It's also, now you can just do a search on Google and you'll find 3 or 4 schools within a certain distance from you. And people are spoiled now, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. And back then you had to really find where the knowledge was and go to it. And for me, I was always learning from one belt level above me. So when I was a white belt, I was learning from a blue belt learning from a purple belt. That's what it was. Luckily for us, Mario Yamasaki, who was very busy at the time, he always had many businesses happening, so he wasn't always on the mat. But he had a connection in Brazil, so he would bring a bunch of athletes, and they would teach us, since he wasn't if he wasn't around. And so I got to meet a lot of people that way, and get connected.
How is that change in your mind takes place? Like, how are you processing this information? You come from, again, heavily striking background with high confidence. Now that is being questioned by a wrestler. You step on the mat. First of all, not learning from a black belt, you're learning from somebody who's, now we would be looked at as a peer almost, right? So the difference in knowledge is not that significant. And then on top of all this, the confidence that you had a moment ago is being questioned because the 150 trophies that you had in that room, like that,
trash.
Well, how significant is that, right?
Yeah.
And this is all for a young man who's just a teenager, right? Like this is all unfolding before you even 16, right?
Yep. Funny you
How
mentioned
is
that.
that change taking place? Like, are you taking the ground easy? Is this like, is this easy for you, or are you, do you still want to punch people in the face? Like, when does this conversion take place?
Ego wise, first you're like in denial, right? And then later on you're in acceptance of the whole thing. But because like the UFC was so captivating for us in terms of what it represented, and the fact that it was a legitimate proving ground of martial arts, like that's what really gave me the motivation to be like, look, I want to be able to do that. So I need to learn this thing. So for me, it was like, okay, fine. Whatever I learned that didn't work, that's fine. I'm going to learn this too. And hopefully I can try to bring those two together, from the standpoint of the who was teaching us. I was, for better or for worse, one of the first people that was teaching me from Brazil that came up here was Fernando Margarita. I don't know if you've done name. He is a crazy guy. He's a crazy guy. And but he's very skilled. And when he came here, we had some jiu-jitsu tournaments, right? Like they were here and there, just not very often, but he would crush everybody. He'd win the absolute. He'd win the blue belt division. I mean, it was almost like he was a black belt. Like no one could touch him here. And everybody would, he if he knew he entered the tournament, he would win. So for us, we were like, all right, we're going to learn from this guy. Kind of weird though. He never really showed us many of his techniques. He'd show us a lot of self-defense stuff. I was like, no, Margarita, show me how you pass the guard. I want to know what he doesn't want us to be able to beat him, but at the same time, we were nowhere close. Like this guy was just an animal on the mat. You see later on, he beats people like Sauer, who becomes world champion. I mean, so we were lucky enough to learn from people that were very skilled. But also during that time, we get a lot of crossover with wrestling, because if you were trying to learn but didn't have access to information, maybe we go to a wrestling club. Our school at that time was very heavy into judo, so it brought judo practitioners who were interested in newaza, in jiu-jitsu, so they would come and then we would get to cross-train with them. So that's why I train a lot of judo, and that was unique too, like kind of getting all the people involved in that. And during that time, I was very lucky that my teacher Mike Moses, he came from Virginia Beach, and he brought Muay Thai to the academy that I was at the time. So now I was getting the best of both worlds, Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. And for me, I don't know if you remember UFC number 7. I believe it was number 7. Marco Huas. Marco Huas, the king of the streets. So watching all this unfold, I'm seeing also in number 5, Dan Severn fights some Muay Thai guy and like suplexes him twice and like basically kills him. So I'm like, all right, okay, we got to learn takedowns and we got to learn how to do this thing. And then when I saw Marco Huas use his Muay Thai in the finals and his grappling ability, right? He put it all together beautifully. The takedown ability, the striking, the grappling, the submissions, and he beat 350-pound Paul Varlin, somebody who has over 150 pounds advantage on him. I was like, man, there it is right there. That's the secret. We got to learn these 2 or 3 arts and put them all together. And that's going to be the secret sauce right there. So again, I was very lucky to have my teacher, Mike Moses, come up because he wanted to learn jiu-jitsu. He was going to start his own program. He brought Muay Thai to our academy. And now I had everything in one place, which is why at our academy, Bay Academy, we have that and many other arts, is because, I feel like you try to take the best out of everything, right? Like it's a whole process. So that was amazing.
You mentioned secret sauce. Secret sauce for what? At that point of time, what are you envisioning? What are you trying to get out of this at that time?
I want to fight. That's what I wanted to do, So I wanted to fight MMA. I wanted to win, and I
fight in the sense of you want to try this, or this is going to be your livelihood.
This is, at that time, it's not a livelihood, right? It's like, because that didn't exist. That really didn't exist. It was more of test your skills. Okay. And if I'm able to do this, and that's the ultimate test, is to stand in front of somebody else. And back then we weren't even sure if we were in a cage or in a ring or in some type of cornered off area. It was just, we were fighting. And so somebody had sent me this video, somebody who I worked with when I was a young, maybe like 15. And back then we had camcorders, right? He had friends that were just kind of like hoodlums, and they were fun. They're going around, and we worked in a mall, and they would video. And he sent me this video, and he called it the backyard. So I got to look at what the name was. But anyway, we worked in a clothing store, and what we would do at the end when it closed is we would move all of the shelves and everything and create a little fight zone for us. And we would fight, and we would camcord the whole thing. So it's like a 15-year-old. I'm trying to like awkwardly get this guy to the ground in a clothing store in like full clothes. I brought in MMA gloves so we could like duke it out, right? So because a lot of these guys also didn't believe in what we were doing, right? Yeah. Oh, what's jiu-jitsu? What's Muay Thai? Back then it was Taibo. Billy Blanks is doing kickboxing. So that's like the idea that people got in their minds. And so I was like, no, dude, let's put these gloves on. Let's see what happens. You know, you think you can fight? Let's go. I think I can fight. Let's see what happens. So,
first of all, did anybody know you guys are doing this? You are in a clothing store creating underground fight club. I mean, that's essentially it.
Yeah. For fun, yeah. And who knew that? It just so happened that his friends came with a camcorder because there were not everybody had them. So it was like, let's just record this thing and see what happens. I mean, if my boss found out, we probably would have been fired for sure.
Or he might have joined you. I mean, you'll never know. You never know.
I don't know. At that time, people are pretty resistant. So that was an interesting time. And going back to see like how terrible my technique was during that time, I was like, oh yeah, that would have never worked. So the idea was, test your skill, get in there and try to see what the right recipe was. And of course, now I know it's different for everybody, right? For me, but this is what I had access to. So I would go ahead and go and fight. I think the first time I fought MMA, I was 18 or 19 years old. I was purple belt. And, it was in a ring. It was in Richmond. I went out there and I was able to combine both. Actually, Muay Thai, because some striking in the clinch. I used a Judo foot sweep to put him down. I got on top, and the guy rolled me over, and I put him in a triangle, and that only took a minute. And I was, that for me, I was like, so it validated my ideas about where we were at, right?
Yeah, I was about to ask you, did that enforce the fact of like I'm becoming a martial artist at this point? Like I'm testing these skills, and this is actually working in a sense of, I'm able to control this situation.
Yeah. I needed to see that. Now, so taking a step back, like in Muay Thai, now this is the first, maybe about 2 months I was training Muay Thai when my teacher, Mike Moses, came over. At that time, he's not so concerned about retaining students so much as just to, go in and we're martial arts, we're fighters. He's a Marine. And so he's like, a tough guy, and he wants to raise us, bring us up in a tough manner. And so my first Muay Thai fight was in 2 months. I trained Muay Thai for 2 months outside of being in Thailand for those 6 weeks. My first fight, and I got destroyed. I got beat up so bad, and I was using kung fu, right? Because I trained that for so long that I was going to use side kicks and spinning back fists and everything. And this guy was just beating me up, and I was getting a rude awakening, because normally when you're fighting in point sparring, I touch the guy. As a matter of fact, if I hit you in the face, I'm going to get penalized. Like I can't hit you in your face. I got to tap you or do what we call a focus punch or kime, like strike, pull it back before I hit you, right? No, they'll give you a point for that, for control and for the fact that it was accurate. Now, this is in my mind how I'm fighting. Like it's almost like we're start and go, and I'm just getting overpowered and just bulldozed by this dude because he just doesn't stop. I'm like, why isn't it stopping? It doesn't stop in full contact Muay Thai. So my first fight I ever had, a smoker, I lost. And so that was tough for me too, because that really did, again, validate the fact that I'm not saying I didn't learn anything from Kung Fu. I take a lot of things away from it, like being able to learn how to move my body, getting into good physical conditioning. A lot of it is like movement. It's almost like a dance, right? And timing and accuracy. I learned these things. And so I'm not discounting all of that. But in terms of real combat, which is something that I was seeking, right, for myself, it put me at a huge disadvantage. But so I had to learn that. And this is also kind of what I was trying to do, is test myself and to learn from those situations, right? In this case, I learned from defeat, which was, I need to be like Bruce Lee. I need to discard what is useless, or also empty my cup. So I need to empty my cup. I can't learn anything with a full cup, right? So let's go ahead and adopt Muay Thai and adopt jiu-jitsu and use primarily these techniques. And I did that even to my detriment at one point, because there was times where I felt like I could have used my Kung Fu training, certain types of kicks that would have been helpful. But I was like, that didn't work for me. I'm going to just forsake all that knowledge and try to take up this combat sport and use these principles and techniques instead.
But that's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we talked about this a little bit more with the police officers, right? You achieve a certain level of mastery. You get a certain level of knowledge and expertise. Let's just put it that way, right? And then one that maybe that's proven wrong, where you're being tested and there's a point of failure, but also the self-acknowledgement and the reality and honesty, the raw honesty with yourself, that now I need to empty the cup and I need to learn something else without reaching for this old thing that I had. And I think, at least from what I'm hearing from you, there might not be that moment with that first Muay Thai fight where, maybe you're learning this thing, but you can't go into these old habits. You have to let go of that in order for you to truly learn something new. Is that what you felt?
I didn't even look at the footage for probably months and months until after it happened.
That must have been hard.
Oh yeah, you don't want to see yourself getting beaten up. You're like, I can't stand to see that, because the idea I had of myself is being just destroyed by this person. So that's it takes a lot to be able to do that. I'm not saying that I have that ability now, and I'm just over. Anytime even now, like it's hard for me. It's hard for me, but I know that there's going to be a gift at the end of that. If you can withstand that, if your ego can withstand that, you're going to learn a lot, and you have to be able to do that. And so that's where that's important. But yeah, it was tough growing up, because your whole idea of yourself is wrapped up in the idea of being a good fighter or being a good martial artist or whatever it is. And to have that shattered for you is very difficult.
Some even might say your identity is being questioned.
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that you've been doing for many, many years. And now, I mean, who are you? Like, what is happening here, right? That has to be difficult, especially in a young age when we are going through these discoveries and we're trying to find ourselves.
I think about it every day now, because, how long can I be on the mat? I believe I could be on the mat for a long time. But what if I can't do this anymore?
Yeah.
What does that mean? I love this so much. And then it almost can be a source of frustration and despair if you couldn't do it anymore. So hopefully, I'll find my way there. I'm not there yet. I'm blessed with continuing to be able to do what I love to do. And I'll keep on doing it until I can't. And then once I run into that new challenge, I'll figure out how to overcome it. But I often think about it too. I was like, what if I couldn't do this thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's on the forefront of my mind too. Like at some point we have to acknowledge that we can't do this anymore. We have to pass the baton. We have to step back, in small, large capacity. I mean, I think this is all waiting for all of us. Like it is what it is, and like I even look at some of the pioneers, Hicks and Gracie or Henzo, like, the magnitude of that person, and now they have to step back simply because the only certain thing in life is that there is end at some point, right?
But that's a great motivator too.
Yeah,
right? It's going to end at some point, so you might as well make the most experience the most things as possible, in the best way, and don't be afraid of it. So I have to remind myself of that every day.
Before we wrap this up, all of this continues, and you receive your black belt from Pedro, one of the pioneers of what we do. What was that feeling like? Did you know it was coming? That's number one.
Well, yes, to a certain degree, because in jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of there's a lot of relationships that get apart and together, and hopefully time heals all wounds, right? That type of deal. Anyway, my instructors had a big kind of schism. They split up. The Muay Thai side split up. The jiu-jitsu side split up. We created two different schools. I was a brown belt at the time. I didn't know where to go, about where to go. I had two dads almost, Mario Yamazaki and Mike Moses. There's a lot of responsibility for a 20-year-old to figure out what to do next, especially when the others, they don't get along, and you have to make a choice. So in doing that, I went with Mike Moses, and we were now kind of like a Ronin. We're 3 brown belts, and we had no master. And what are we going to do? And that's when he contacted his instructor, from Frank Cucci, down in Virginia Beach. He's still in Lynx Academy. And he was like, you should get back in contact with Professor Pedro Sauer. So we did, and that's how I met him for the first time. Well, it's not the first time. I took some seminars with him down there, but that's when we joined the team. And we were training, competing. That's how we felt like we could earn our position. Was we just went to take as many challenges as we could, as many jiu-jitsu competitions. And I remember I came back from Las Vegas. I wrestled Matt Hughes, and in the semis, he beat me by some points, passed and pinned. And this is when he was UFC champion. Him and his brother went in there and just destroyed everybody. So I came back, and Master Pedro Sauer was coming in to give black belts, and I was the only one that didn't get one. There's 3 of us.
Oh,
wait a minute.
What?
Yeah, we did this together. Like, well, what's happening? I thought I was going to get my black belt, but I come from also that time where you're not supposed to ask for your belts, or say when is the time. And I always tell my students, say it'll happen when it's happening. Don't ask for it. Or else I got to make you wait for 6 months. So
is that an ego check for you?
I was just like, well, I was disappointed, but at the same time, you're like, maybe it wasn't the time. They don't think it's right for me. Then I just got to keep on going. I'll keep on proving myself.
No anger, no resentment, none of that. You just go with the punches.
I come from a very obedient background, so you can't even talk back to your family members. So I'm like, well, I guess it wasn't the time, what am I going to do? But I'll prove to them, at the same time, you're like, maybe you feel bad because you're like, maybe I wasn't good enough. I need to be better. So maybe I need to compete more. I need to win more things. I need to do more and show them that I'm worthy of this. So we end up, many months later, we end up going out to Utah, where Professor Pedro's school and headquarters was at the time. And it's great because, Mike Moses, my instructor, and my rival, Todd Margolis, they got their black belts. It was just like, he came in, we did the seminar, they got their black belts. For me, I got to go to Utah and I got to fight 20 brown belts, in elevation, just getting crushed in elevation. And then finally getting to the end of the gauntlet and then being awarded a black belt. I thought that was a huge achievement. It took me about 8 years. And then you think like, oh, now I'm a master. Like now I know, but really as time passed, you realize you don't really know much at all. And this is the time you spend the most time learning, right? As a black belt.
Isn't that almost mind-blowing in a sense, where we look up to that black belt in a room, we look across and we want to be like them, we want to mimic them, we admire them, we are grateful to them, and we feel like they are the experts. They are this idol in a sense.
Yeah.
And then once we get to that point, really nothing changes. Matter of fact, more I talk to people, more everybody acknowledges that actually it's just a point of acknowledgement that I have yet so much more to learn.
I think that's a beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu, right? The martial arts. It's like you arrived at that point too. And that's also what keeps it fun and interesting and keeps that journey going. There's so much more to learn and so much to share now that people, at least you're validated as you have some skill in this. Now I think it's important that we continue to share that with other people and have them go through that journey themselves. And it's like, just like as we were just talking right here, that this journey of self-discovery, of like tears and happiness and ups and downs and all these things. And like, I don't know what other activity, art, sport, whatever you want to call it, brings this type of journey, challenge, joy, also sadness sometimes to anybody. And that's where I think that, like, that's the mental fortitude is important to have and understand that you just got to get through and never quit and just keep going. And at the end of this whole thing, there's going to be a gift. And, as you keep on going, you'll find many more. And it's just important to share with other people. So
what is the gift that you found so far?
so far, the gift of friendship, connection, um, livelihood. I mean, this is all I do. I teach jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I've made so many connections with people, be it students, be it like other school owners, be it people who train jiu-jitsu. I just traveled from El Salvador because I wanted to see what the country was like, and also see if they actually used Bitcoin the way they said they were going to use Bitcoin. But anyway,
Do they?
Not the way that they say that they do, but they do accept it. So I thought it was interesting. Anyway, I did not achieve my mission of purchasing an ice cream with my Bitcoin in my wallet, but I got to learn a lot from there. Now I was as soon as I landed, went to sleep, and I was in San Salvador first, then I was going to go to the beach, El Zonte, which is called Bitcoin Beach, and I was there and I said, let me look see what the schools around me. BJJ near me. BJJ near me. Probably the biggest search in Google. So
No kidding.
Oh, there it goes. There's a school. They have a class at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. So, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I got my family with me, so I can't let my alarm clock go off too loud. So if I don't get up before the time, then I can't go train. But, I'm in and out of sleep. And 4 o'clock comes. I go out there. Get to the class. There's 20 people training. I make new friends, make new connections immediately. The owner wasn't there at the time, but he comes an hour later. He said, "Hey, I heard you're in town. Like, let's talk." So we start talking. He tells me what's going on. I get the goods, right? Where to go eat. Go over here. Don't go over here. The political climate is like this, so you're learning everything. Like, this is like the biggest network you could ever get yourself plugged into. So I make it a habit whenever I'm traveling somewhere. I want to go train. I want to make new friends. I want to make some connections. I want to share. I buy a shirt. I'm like, I want to support. How can I support you? And then in that conversation, other things happen. And it's just almost like just coincidentally, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to go down to El Zonte. He's like, I teach a class there Friday and Saturday. You should link up with me down there. I said, oh, really? Great. Because I didn't know where I was going to train. Go up there and train. He invites me to this surf resort. His student owns the surf resort. We start to talking. Now we have other things in common, but also other opportunity. He's like, let's bring other people here. Let's do a jiu-jitsu retreat. Let's do these things. I said, yeah, that's great. Like, what a great network. What a great friend. I would never be able to make friends like that in any other activity. I was like playing tennis. Like, what am I going to do afterwards? We're talking. So the jiu-jitsu is like, we're trying to strangle each other. Just like you said, we're holding each other's lives in our hands. That's where we have to have the respect for one another, right? And then afterward, we become really close friends. So, I mean, I think that's amazing.
Have you ever reflected on the point, what would be your life like if you didn't step into that Kung Fu Academy? When you had those hesitation points, what if you didn't go in? What if you stayed in that car and went back home?
I mean, I think that a lot of us, not just, in America, so there's a lot of mental health issues, that maybe that comes a lot from not reaching a certain idea of yourself. Maybe it's not reaching a certain potential. Maybe it's our way of life that we're just not made to endure. I outside of fighting, like when it wasn't really a way of life to do, I went the other direction. I became a CPA and I worked in an office, and working in a cubicle was like getting your soul pulled out of your anus. It's so
Listen, I had my fair share of corporate life. I'm laughing because it is so true.
Yeah. And I think if I had to do that, and that was my only way of living, I think I would be very, very sad, and I wouldn't know why. So
Do you feel like you're a lucky cat in the sense of you do what you love, you do what you're passionate about, and many people are very miserable about what they do and how they live their lives?
I am very grateful that martial arts is a way of life for me, but I would also say that I have most likely endured many challenges that other people in a cushy kind of job may not have to do. And of course, I'm not belittling that job or that, or those occupations or anything like that. I think that you have to, it's almost like running a school is it's like fighting too. You got to arm yourself with the knowledge. You got to fight the bad guys. There's things that are going to happen that you can never foresee.
Wait. Are you saying that you actually work? I mean, we as instructors, we teach one class a day. We live on a beach in acai every day, right?
That's it, right?
That's it, right?
Awesome, kick-ass life. I want to no, it's not like that all the time, but also you had to endure a lot to get there. People don't always see that journey, just like the black belt. Nobody sees that journey, the things you had to go through, the challenges that you had to overcome. And so, I'm so grateful that martial arts is a way of life for me. And so therefore I have a duty to share it with other people in hopes that it brings out the best in all of us. And I'm not saying that like I'm a good person. I'm here to do I can only do what I can do, right? And I have to use my best judgment. But I want this world to be a better place. I want us humans to have a better connection. I want us to treat each other better. I want us to be kind to each other. I know that it doesn't always work out, but I think that martial arts is a good vehicle, a good connection that can make that happen. I know a lot of other people have different ways of doing it, and God bless them. And I appreciate them. And I'm not saying my way is the only way, but it's the way that I know. And therefore I have to do the best that I can to use what I know to help as many people as possible.
I love it. Before we finish, where can you be found? If anybody wants to connect with you and as a continuation of this conversation, or perhaps anybody is in the area, DC area, or wherever, where are you found? Instagram, social media, websites, what can we find you?
Yeah, you can find me first, if you're in Washington, DC, you can come to Beta Academy. That's a Body Efficient Tactile Arts, an acronym. And we use the fish as our logo. So we're actually in the capital. So we have a 10,000 square foot facility. It's one of the largest facilities, has 600 students. In and out, people come in and out of DC all the time. So if you're ever in DC, you can go to www.betaacademy.com, find us online, come and train. We get a lot of people that pass through DC, either for tourism or for conferences or whatever. Stop by anytime. We'd love to have you come train. We got classes 7 days a week from 6 a.m. all the way to 10 p.m. We can never close because our rent is so high. So we got to be open all the time. And we come in, we got Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, no-gi, kids classes, whatever, you name it. If you're trying to find me online, I have my own website, and that's my name, nakapanmma.com, all one word. It has all the other things that I have. I also help the jiu-jitsu business community, not just jiu-jitsu, but martial arts business community, help them with their schools, with systems and that and grow their academies. I used to be a CPA at one point in my life, found out that it was better to deal with my own money problems than to deal with others' money problems. But that knowledge and experience has helped me in a way to help other martial arts school owners. So you can find me there. Also find me on social media. I'm all over the place. And I really want to connect with as many people as possible. So if you're ever in DC or you just want to reach out to me online, feel free to do so. I'll get back to you. And let's keep martial arts going. Let's keep it spreading. Let's share it with the world.
Well, and I'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes of this episode. So if you guys want to connect with Nakapan, feel free to do it. I mean, what a great knowledge. And, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being vulnerable, because I think in some sense it takes a lot to really open up and having some of these conversations, especially when we talk about some of those hard and difficult parts of our life. And I'll be sitting back on the sidelines and watching you continue growing with the impact that you continue making. And I truly do appreciate everything that you've done and continue doing. So thank you for that.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for hosting this podcast. I really appreciate your time and connecting with you.
All right. Let's wrap it up for today.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.